I went to a local comic book show and picked up some absolute gems. Stay tuned to find out what I picked up and knocked off my 2023 goals list. Welcome back, comic book fans. This is Rusty again from Collector Auctions, and in today's video we are going to go over some comics that I picked up from a local comic book show down in Annandale, Virginia. Now, this is a regular ongoing show that happens about every month or so during the year, and I find that they have some really good dealers down there and some really good books. They have a lot of card dealers there as well, so it's half and half a show, but the dealers that are there for comics are always some of the really best of the best local dealers that we have in the area, and this time it didn't disappoint. I absolutely found some gems, and a couple of these were off of my 2023 goals list. So before I get started, make sure you hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you won't miss out on great episodes like this each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Alright guys, let's get to the books. Alright, so as I said, this was a really good show down in Annandale, Virginia. This show happens about every month or so, and I haven't been down there in a while, only because I've had other obligations this fall. I've had Baltimore Comic Con going on, and a lot of my money went towards that, and some of the travel that I've been doing, and I just haven't made it down there. But that doesn't mean that they don't have some really good dealers and some really good comics. Whether it's you're looking for dollar bin finds, Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze, Modern, and definitely the Golden Age is really good down there. And if you guys follow Automatic Comics on YouTube here, which I'm sure many of you do because he has such a big channel, and he's so good about giving you information about Golden Age books, and he is local to that area, and he's gone to that show, and he's actually found some really good books down there. Now, Golden Age is not definitely something that I'm really pursuing at this time, but that doesn't mean that I can't find some of the gems that I'm looking for. And this trip was no exception. I went down and I went through the show like I normally do. Now, I didn't take footage because it's just a small little show, and I've done footage there before. It's kind of the same footage over and over, but I saw all of my regular dealers that I know there, and I said hi, and I do a lap, and I look at the walls, and I find, because I'm trying to focus very specifically on the books off my goals list first, and then look at secondary things if I can't find anything on the goals list. So I basically look the room over, I look at the walls, I look at the prices that they have on some of the things that I'm interested in. If I see something I'm interested in, I may dig through the bins a little bit just to see if I find a few other things. And if not, I will just continue on and I'll keep going around the room. I don't want to go in there and start digging through the bins looking for stuff that's secondary on my list. Now, I still want those eventually. Some of those other things are still really good things to pick up. But as I said, it's getting late in the year. I don't think I'm going to finish my goals list for the year, but I'm still working on it, and I've got actually came back with a couple things off that list. So let's talk about the books I ended up picking up. I only ended up buying from one dealer, and it's a dealer that I've dealt with before. It is a couple of really good fellows with the Eclectic Nerd, and I think you can definitely find those guys on Instagram. I will leave a link in my description so you guys can reach out to them and follow them on Instagram. But I'm telling you, the books that they have are always spectacular, and the prices are actually pretty reasonable. But you know me, I go off condition and then I look at price. And some of the stuff I was finding, I couldn't believe just how good it was. And luckily enough, it was definitely on my goals list. So let's just start with the very first book here. Now, this is a book I haven't bought for a while, only because I haven't found the really pristine copy I'm looking for. It is one of those books that I'm looking to get graded as a 9.8, so it's not technically off my list yet because it's still raw, but I'm telling you, this candidate right here, I pulled it out and I looked at it and I'm going, oh my goodness, I have not seen a better copy than this. Let me show it to you. Avengers 186, John Byrne artwork. This is the book that was kind of behind the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness movie with the Scarlet Witch. If I remember right, it's the first appearance. Is it first appearance of the one? Actually, I don't even know. I can't remember now. It's not necessarily the first appearance of the Darkhold, but it's the origin of the Scarlet Witch. It is a 3 issues that they did in the Avengers 185, 86, and 87 that they do the origin of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And this is the money book out of them. And even with the market down, this is still a really good book. Now, this book right here, man, it is really, really nice. And no spine ticks over here, sharp corners. I am excited. I say that all the time. I'm excited to get that into the shop, do a little clean and press and get into CGC. But this one hasn't excited. I haven't had one that excited me this much for a 9.8 candidate like this in a while. And I've never gotten my 9.8, and that's what's on my list. I want to get a 9.8 candidate of this in my book, or in my collection. I've got my 9.6 I have over there. It's really nice, but it's funny. You could go out right now and buy a 9.6 straight up, anywhere from $84 to about $180, depending on who's selling it. I was a little shocked to see a 9.6 go all the way down to $84. I think that's a really good value. Again, market's really down. You have buying opportunities. So in some cases, I will be buying straight up. I may just buy a graded version of something. If it, like I did with a lot of my X-Men books. You know, I want those 9.6 John Byrne books. But in this book right here, 9.6 is only $84, but I don't want a 9.6. I want a 9.8. And 9.8s are still can run anywhere from about $500 to $312. Now, $312 was a pretty low price over the last month. I was a little surprised to see it drop down that much. I have normally seen this as a 9.8 around that $450 to $500 range, and I don't want to pay that much for that for this book. It's a key book, but it is not one of the biggest key books. It's just something I've always enjoyed. I always liked this issue. I always liked those 3 issues. The John Byrne Avengers books were always a lot of fun. I grew up with all of those. So when I found this copy from the Eclectic Nerd, I was pretty excited. I pulled it out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to hold on to this. And I dug through the rest of the books and see what else I could find and add to it, because I wanted to bundle several of these books to get the price down. And I think he had a 187 that was still pretty good, but it still had a little spine tick, and that's not as valuable as this. And I'm not interested in that book at a 9.8, unless it's a 9.8 candidate, I should say. So anyway, I started digging through the rest of the books, and I'll show you what else I found. Now, this is not on the list, but I saw it. I think I actually have this in my PC from when I was a kid. I would have to go back and through. I can tell you it's probably not in really decent shape or gradable shape, but I know I had this as a kid. I just need to find out where I put it. It's in some box someplace. But I ended up picking up an exceptional copy of this. This is the Marvel Comics Super Special number 18, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's the first appearance in comics of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. And you've got some Howard Chaykin artwork here. Absolutely gorgeous copy. Minor spine tick over here, but I felt, and I didn't even look it up at the time, but this is a book that keeps popping up on other channels, and I'm going, yeah, I like this. This is really nice. So this is kind of my first foray into what could potentially be a magazine submission to CGC. I've never done one of those, but this one I may have to actually get in there. In fact, that's the plan on something like this. I didn't buy this just to hold on to it and say, hey, I've got it in my PC. My plan is to get this graded. I've seen all kinds of prices on graded versions of this. 9.8 was only $216. That's a little low. I don't have any other recent prices on that, but 9.6 is, I think that's an old, I don't have the date. I got some notes up there, and the note does not give me the date, but I've only got one price there. Normally I'll give you a range of prices, and those range of prices are usually like the last 3 or 4 prices that of something, of when something sells. And if I only have one up there, it means that that's only the only recent sale that's there. Other sales were definitely more than a couple years ago, and I don't think there's irrelevant if it's before the pandemic and the comic book boom. So what I can say, there's not a lot of 9.8s out there, but 9.6s, what I'm seeing is late recent sales, $384, $430, and that's what that's telling me is this is a much more valuable book if you could get a 9.8. That 216, I bet you, is probably at least a year too old at this point. 9.4s, which is where my early guesstimate at this right now would fall, is about a $333 to $225 range, give or take. So I've got some hope for this book. Hopefully it will come out really good. But again, this was not on my goals list, but I saw it and I'm like, let's go down that road. Let's go ahead and get that, because I definitely get other things when I'm there. You never know what you're going to find sometimes. But again, all these books came from the Eclectic Nerd, and again, they don't disappoint. You never know what you're going to find. So I ended up buying one more book, and by this point, I'd bundled these 3 books together to get the price at a certain point, and that was it. It really didn't leave a lot of room for other dealers at the show, because honestly, a lot of the other dealers had books with prices that still, to this day, kind of astound me that you're still asking that price for this. Now, I guess I could go in there and say, hey, how about this? But they're starting at such a high level, it's almost insulting to come at a level, even if it's reasonable, even if that's a fair market and they're well above it, it's still kind of insulting. And it's like, I don't want to have to deal with getting you to come down to a decent price. So I ended up buying everything from the Eclectic Nerd, and this right here was definitely on the goals list. I don't have it on my goals list as a graded version, but I kind of know I want to get a high grade of it, medium to high, well, a little bit higher than medium, mid-high to high grade. And he had a raw copy of this, and I think it's going to take a little bit of work, but the corners are super sharp. It's got a black cover. Let me show it to you guys. Got a really good copy of Spider-Man 100 with this wonderful John Romita Sr. cover right here. It's one of my favorite covers. It's funny, when I do these videos, every time, sometimes I shoot these 2 or 3 at a time, and I will change the shirts. And one of the reasons I change the shirts a lot is, instead of just doing another video wearing, like today, I'm wearing short box shirt, and I'll change the next into another shirt for another video. Part of the reason I do that is when I shoot multiple videos and I go to editing, it's very easy for me to pick out which video I need to put together. I don't want to confuse it. So that's one of the reasons I changed the shirt. I have setting over there for the next video, I should have pulled it out for this video. I have the shirt with this cover on the shirt. It's one of my favorite comic book shirts I like to wear. And always one of my favorite covers. I own a pretty, I'd say good to very good, maybe very good plus copy of this that I picked up at a flea market when I was like 12, 13 years old, and I've had it ever since. And I always wanted to have a really good copy of this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why I picked this book up. Yes, it's on my list, but I've been looking at this at every show I go to over the last year, and I've seen really good copies that have been really expensive, and I've seen really poor copies that have also been reasonable priced, but I just didn't want to pay that money for a lesser copy. And when I saw this copy at the Eclectic Nerd, I looked at the price and I looked at the condition, and I felt like it was a really good candidate for a clean and press and to hopefully get a fairly substantial high grade on this. I have high hopes for it, and I know that it won't reach that 9.8 level. I mean, that'd be crazy, because they got some great prices on a 9.8 if you could get that. I've seen recent sale for a best offer on eBay. It was a $6,500 listing and a best offer was accepted, so I'm not sure exactly how much they were offered on that. But I have seen other recent sales over the last month or so for $3,300 and $3,700. Now, again, I don't think it's going to be a 9.8 candidate. I think it has a shot somewhere in that 8.5 to 9.4 range, depending on how good a job I do getting this book prepared in the shop. And 9.4s give you a little bit of price range on that. Recent sales I've seen on that, $750, $840, and even up to $1,000 over the last month or so for a 9.4. Again, outside shot at that right there. My guess is this book is going to grade out somewhere in that 8.5 level. And even that has had some good sales recently compared to what I paid for this. $261, $272, $310, respectively, over the last month or so. So I've got some room in here from what I paid, plus what's going to end up being grading fees, that honestly, I'm not too worried about it, because that'll put me about in that ballpark. If it comes out 8.5, I will be in that ballpark of about what it's valued at right now. That's fine with me, because I'm looking at this as a PC book, as a keeper. So not too worried about trying to make a profit on this one, but I like to give you guys those numbers so you have that. So when you go out there and you're looking at books like this, you guys can kind of keep that in mind and realize that there's a lot of potential and a lot of books out there that have not been graded yet. And I know a lot of you guys don't really like the whole grading scene, and I didn't at one point, but the value in these books, I mean, I enjoy collecting them, whether they're graded or ungraded, but the potential for some of these graded books is just the reality. There's a lot of people out there who buy these, and they buy them high grade, and they're willing to pay the money for it. Market's down right now, but there's still a lot of profit to be made in this. And I hate to be that. I kind of straddle both sides of the fence between a seller and a collector, but I'm just kind of giving you guys a little bit of information from my perspective, and hopefully you guys can use that moving forward. And don't judge me too harshly on that, please. But as I said, this is a PC book. I didn't necessarily have it as a graded book on my goals list for this year, but it will get graded at some point. But it has been knocked off the list, and I definitely can kind of let other books rise to the top, and I don't have to look for other copies of this at this time. But that's about it for today, guys. I ended up with 3 books at this show, and that doesn't mean that the other dealers didn't have good books, and some of them have good deals. There's definitely some of my buddies there that have some other good books, and it's just, what am I looking for at this particular time? And I wasn't looking to dive into the dollar bins, and I wasn't looking to look at a lot of the modern, even though for some keys that, I'll put it this way, if none of these on my list had showed up, I probably would have ended up back at some of the other tables at some of my other friends, and we would have looked at other books. I may not have bought as big of books, but I probably would have picked up a few things nonetheless. But that's the way this show went. If you guys ever get a chance, check out the shows in Annandale, Virginia. They are held by Show Promotions. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. They also put on the Frederick Comic-Con that happens, I think, at least twice a year in Frederick, Maryland, where you have most of the dealers that you have at this show, the comic book dealers, that is, plus a whole slew of other dealers from the area, and you get some from the Pennsylvania area and the Western Maryland area, and still that Northern Virginia area. So it's a really good show. You just have more dealers at that. But this little Annandale show is spectacular because, yes, it's small, but it has really good dealers. So I encourage you guys to check out their schedule. There is a link in the description below, so you can go to their website and see what their show schedule is. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this comic book haul from the Annandale Comic Book Show, and I look forward to your comments. What do you think about these books? What do you think about these prices? What do you think about my strategy in getting these books for my PC and sometimes for profit? I mean, you guys can let me know by leaving me a comment in the comment section below. And if you're ever interested on anything on my channel, definitely reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account. You can also check out what I currently have for sale on my eBay store or on my Shortbox page. I shouldn't even have to put up the Shortbox logo when I'm doing this video. I'm wearing a shirt today. I'm doing free advertising for them today. So definitely check out my books on eBay and Shortbox. Definitely have some good things for sale. But again, if you ever see anything on the channel, just reach out and let me know. So that's it, guys. I will see you for the next show. And remember, every comic has a story.